We don't know the conditions of exactly how this balloon ended up here. Does it pose a threat? A physical kinetic threat to individuals in the United States and the US homeland? Does it pose a threat to civilian aviation? Does it pose a significantly enhanced threat of intelligence on the intelligence side? Dilly-dallying is not a privilege that we have. So let's start with the news story that everyone in the foreign policy field is talking about right now. Let's talk about the suspected Chinese spy balloon that just appeared over Montana. So this story is pretty wild. So a Chinese spy balloon, at least according to the US government, the Chinese government says instead that this is not a Chinese spy balloon, but this is a weather balloon that actually accidentally went drastically off course and is now going through the American Midwest. And it just so happened to go over sites like missile silos in Montana. Oh, how convenient. How convenient. Oh my goodness. But anyway, maybe it's true, maybe it isn't. I don't really believe them. But also a lot of people, I guess, were expecting like a lot of rage at me, like, how dare the Chinese violate our sovereignty? But I kind of just assume that they're doing this at all times, right? I kind of just am always assuming that the Chinese government is trying to find way to spy on Americans, spy on our military installations, try to like crack intelligence about our arsenal of nuclear weapons and our Navy and all that. I assume it. And I think because I made that assumption, a lot of people are like, what? How is the Chinese spy on us? But I mean, I kind of just assumed this. I'm not saying that this isn't good, that this is good or I'm okay with it. I'm not. It would be pretty, I don't know if the right word is cucked. I don't want to use that word, but I can't think of another word. It'd be pretty cucked if I was like, I'm okay with other nations spying on the United States and its people. Like, of course I'm not going to say that, but I'm not going to be here and like be like pretending outrage. I'm going to act like Walter Cronkite, like, today is a dark day in America. Today our freedom, our safety, our privacy has been violated, even though that stuff has already been violated by intelligence agencies for a while now. Even if we have still some protections. Anyway, I am not going to do that. What I'm going to say is, of course, this is bad, but it's also not unexpected. Now let's learn a little bit about the story, a little bit more of the details before I talk about how everybody just wants to shoot this puppy down. No holds barred. Don't calculate the civilians. Fire. I see a lot of people talking about we need to shoot it down now, which we're going to talk about why the Biden administration hasn't shot it down. And I want to talk about whether this would have happened if Trump was in office, which has become another topic of discussion for all the political talking heads. Let's listen to some of the details of the story from, as always, DW News, because I like their coverage of news events, definitely international news, because they cover it a lot more. And they have a slant. Every news agency has a slant, but they try to deafen it very, very well, while also not letting go of the fact-based reporting.
The United States says it's tracking a surveillance balloon that's been spotted high over the state of Montana. The Pentagon says it suspects it's Chinese, but has not confirmed its origin.
By the way, if this Chinese spy balloon had one person in it, that would increase the population of Montana temporarily by 10% at least.
Meanwhile, China has warned against speculation.
Actually, I think the best argument the Chinese could make for that this is not a Chinese spy balloon is they say just, why Montana? Why would we go to Montana? And then that'd be I think a lot of people would be convinced by the argument. Kidding, of course. Missile silos are there for our nuclear arsenal, and that would be what would be valuable for them to spy on.
And what it called hype until the facts are established.
When a Montana resident spotted this object hovering for over 30 minutes in the skies above his home, he had no idea what it was.
I was actually at work and I was getting ready to leave for the day. And just a few minutes earlier, I'd seen some news reports of some airspace restrictions here in Billings. And so I thought that was a little suspicious. And I was looking out the window like I normally do, and I just happened to spot it out of the corner of my eye.
US defense officials say a suspected Chinese surveillance balloon has been traveling over the country for several days, including over sensitive military sites. Not deeming it to be particularly dangerous and not wanting to harm people on the ground, they chose not to shoot it down. US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken is set to make a rare visit to China in a few days. Responding to the incident, Beijing warned against speculation.
China is a responsible country and has always strictly abided by international laws. And
I'm sorry.
China has no intention to violate the territory and airspace of any sovereign countries.
It violates the air defense zone of Taiwan on a near daily basis. Just throwing it out there. Not to mention, their claims on the South China Sea are infringement on the territorial waters of the Philippines, Vietnam, Brunei, Malaysia, Taiwan, I think Japan. I mean, they make the claims on the Senkaku Islands are also there. Just, very interesting. Not to mention, of course, is also the invasion of Vietnam, which is not often discussed, and how after we left Vietnam, the Chinese said, let us have a swing at it. And it went not the best for them, because I don't know if they thought, like after the French fought the Vietnamese and the Americans fought the Vietnamese, that this would somehow be very different, but it was not. It was not very different.
As for the balloon, we're looking into and verifying the situation and hope that both sides can handle this together calmly and carefully.
Didn't even think about India and the border skirmishes there. Okay, whatever. Let's continue.
Meanwhile, Canada says it is also tracking the balloon and monitoring what it calls a potential second incident.
We can now go live to Ian Chong, International Relations and Security Expert at the NUS National University in Singapore. We've heard from a senior US defense official who told reporters that this is clearly a surveillance balloon. Can you tell us a bit more about what this balloon actually looks like, what's in it, how high it is, how big it is? Any more details?
So we don't have many details from the U.S. Defense Department. What we do know is that it's flying in the stratosphere, which is above commercial traffic. The size is supposed to be something around 3 buses, but I mean, those details are scant. We don't even know what kind of surveillance it does. These sorts of balloons can do anything from imagery to sensory stuff to electronic intelligence to collecting air samples, but there's no detail, so we don't know what exactly this particular balloon does. Although these are the range of possibilities that balloons like it might be able to do.
But there is said to be equipment in that balloon which could be dangerous to people if it were to be shot down.
Right, that has to do with debris. So,
you know what China should do? China should look for like which major politician's birthday is coming up and just say that, it was birthday balloons. They're sending it over as a celebratory gift. Okay, let's wrap this up, and then I'm going to give my thoughts and some extra information and some more explanation from why they are not shooting this down.
If the balloon was shot down, basically there'll be an explosion and there'll be a debris field that would spread across a wide area. It's not possible to control where the debris falls in any precise manner.
Well, Ian Chong is stealing my work, so I'll let him finish.
Could fall on people. It could fall on property, causing injury, damage, possibly even death.
Okay, this senior official also told reporters that there's no doubt that this is Chinese. What information do you have there?
So that's what the U.S. Defense Department has put out. There's no reason to believe that they are fabricating anything, but there's no way to independently corroborate this at this point in time. The Canadian Ministry of Defense said they've been tracking it, but that's basically all we have at this point in time. The Chinese, interestingly, haven't denied it. They've called for calm and not for speculation, but if they were adamant that it wasn't them, they could have also just denied it flat out, but they have not done that.
What do you think this all means for Chinese-US relations?
So certainly it puts complications on the upcoming Blinken visit to China. If the visit goes on, it will certainly be an area of discussion. We've seen the House Republicans call for the Blinken visit to be put off. So the timing of this particular balloon being put across to the U.S. is very curious. It comes at a time when the Chinese too want to talk to the U.S. So why they've decided to do this, if it is indeed them, it becomes very, very odd, right? There's no clear-cut explanation.
And Ian, just tell me this isn't the first time that this has happened, is it?
Right. So there have been reports that, it's happened before, but certainly this is the first time that the U.S. government has made it public. How many times before, in what form, all that has not been made public previously.
Been monitored by Chinese balloons for years, but he kind of went into detail. All I wanted to say about why they haven't shot it down, and the Biden administration talks about this here as well. This is from, which official is this? This is from a senior defense official. Why not shoot it down? We have to do the risk reward here. So the first question is, does it pose a threat? A physical kinetic threat to individuals in the United States and the U.S. homeland? Our assessment is it does not. Does it pose a threat to civilian aviation? Our assessment is it does not. Does it pose a significantly enhanced threat of intelligence on the intelligence side? Our best assessment right now is that it does not. So given that profile, we assess that the risk of downing it, even if the probability is low in a sparsely populated area of debris falling and hurting someone or damaging property, that it wasn't worth it. This isn't like Top Gun, where it just explodes and doesn't go anywhere. It's large and it's metal. It would put hundreds of Americans at risk. Now, if you were to tell the conservative commentators on Twitter that this isn't like Top Gun and shooting, you can't just shoot it down unless you want to risk all these people being hurt, you got to wait till a good time to shoot it down, because the U.S. defense official goes on to say, look, we might shoot it down when we find it a place where it's safe to, or if the risk to either civilians, aviation, and or intelligence increases exponentially, and now we feel like there's no options. But currently we don't want to, because, I mean, the only thing that could make the situation any worse is if not only is there a Chinese spy balloon over the United States, but then we shot it down and then it killed a bunch of people. I mean, that is the worst possible way for the story to end. And think about how balloon stories have been in the media. The last big balloon story I remember is Balloon Boy. You guys remember Balloon Boy? You guys remember Balloon Boy? We got out of that pretty scot-free, remember? We got out of that pretty no, wait, what's this? What? No, not the Five Nights at Freddy's. No, this thing. Oh god, Five Nights at Freddy's ruined everything. This thing, Balloon Boy, 2009. Nobody died, everybody survived. We've had very few balloon-related casualties, and I'd like to keep that number low, okay? I'd like to keep balloons wholesome. So that's the first thing. The second thing, a lot of people are trying to say that, hey guys, look, if Trump was in office, the Chinese would never dare have this spy balloon over the United States. First off, we don't know the conditions of exactly how this balloon ended up here. If this was a deliberate move by the Chinese, like we're gonna have this balloon go over here, be spotted, and like test the United States on this, whether this was like a spy balloon that flew off course, or the slim chance that the Chinese are actually telling the truth and it's a meteorological balloon. I don't really trust that, but I mean, there's a small possibility that's the case. We don't know exactly why this balloon is over the United States, over Montana, and being sent everywhere, whether it was a mistake, whether what the exact conditions were. So we already don't know all the information to make the analysis of if Joe was in office, if Donald Trump was in office instead of Joe, whether this would have happened. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, dude, did people think that over the last like 4 years, like 2022, 2016, 2022, in that time period, the Chinese stopped spying on us because they were scared of Trump? Is that something people legitimately believe? That they were so terrified of offending Donald Trump that they decided that they would not spy on Donald Trump or the United States at all? Even though we have actually caught Chinese nationals trying to break in to Mar-a-Lago and getting lost in the halls, making their way towards where Trump could have been storing presidential records, as we now know, because of, you know, all of the scandals coming out with Biden and Carter and Trump with these presidential records and violations of the Presidential Records Act, which Trump also increased the penalties for. I find the likelihood that they just stopped spying on the United States very low, and it's not like we didn't catch spies in that time frame. We did. It's not like there were not spying scandals in that time frame. There was. I think people just have a short-term memory and are very idealistic around Trump if you're a supporter of him, and try to imagine that, oh, Trump's so brave, he's so strong, he's so intimidating, that the Chinese would never stand up to him and be like, yeah, we're gonna spy on you. I mean, we're not going to admit it publicly because no nation admits it publicly, but we're going to spy on you. I mean, Xi Jinping would call Trump personally and complain to him that the United States has sent too many high-level government American officials to Taiwan. And then Trump would get angry and yell at his staff and be like, how dare you? I don't want to hear about Taiwan and Hong Kong ever again. Bring them back. Until we were almost sending like janitors over there to be our representatives in Taiwan and talk to them at separate government, like governmental events as an American representative. So it's hard for me to view China, the Chinese government, doing that and think, oh, they would never dare spy on the United States. That's silly. That's very silly. I mean, they violate Taiwanese airspace all the time during Trump and during Biden's presidencies. Why? Well, they're violating Taiwanese airspace. They're launching how many cyber attacks on Taiwanese airspace? But they're not going to be spying during Trump's administration. They wouldn't do this during Trump's administration. I have no reason to believe that. It just sounds like people are simping for Trump. That's all it sounds like. It just sounds like people are simping for Trump and trying to believe, well, Trump's such a loose cannon. No one would ever dare spy on America. That's silly. If anything, if I was a foreign leader and I found out that a loose cannon has taken over any nation, I would increase my spying efforts because I would be concerned that guy can, flip on a moment's notice, and I would want to know everything that's going on. Definitely, since I think we have a string of presidents who probably haven't been the best when it comes to like informational security. So I don't know why people are being so idealistic around Trump on this outside of just hero worship, right? Now, putting that to the side, there is one more update to the story, which the news station didn't include, and it's talked about here. Where is it? U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken. They were talking about this in the DW segment. They were talking about House Republicans trying to tell him, look, we need to cancel this visit now in retaliation. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken postponed his upcoming trip to China in response to the balloon sighting, according to 2 U.S. officials. The postponement marks a significant new phase in the tensions between Washington and Beijing. Now, this is really interesting because, as the DW segment was talking about, the Chinese wanted this meeting. They wanted to try to find solutions to some of the problems between the United States and China. Whether this was a genuine effort and they were going to be able to push, they were going to push forward on this, or what exactly the intentions were of the meeting, how it was going to go, who knows? But they did want a meeting at the very least, right? And so for us to do this in response to this is the type of stuff that might actually discourage further spying operations in the future. Or at least because you're never going to stop the Chinese or any global power from spying on your nation altogether. It's impossible. Nation states believe too much and are too interested in their own national security. Definitely when other nation states are so powerful and they have competing geopolitical interests, right? Geopolitical interests. They're going to spy on each other. Russia's going to spy on America. America's going to spy on Russia. China's going to spy on America. China's going to spy on Russia. Russia's going to spy on China. It's a big circle of spying. This is true with the vast majority of superpowers. Now, I do think you could make them reel it in, just like they could make us reel it in if we were caught in a high-profile spying scandal. Because they're going to be like, damn, well, we shouldn't be so bold. Maybe you should reel it in, be more quiet, be more reserved. And so I do think this is the right move, and I think postponing it is better because once this drone is, down or been shot down or whatever, more evidence can be gathered so we can have more conclusive proof to be like, hey, this is a Chinese spy drone, or hey, false alarm, very small chance, but it could happen. Hey, false alarm, Chinese were actually telling the truth. For obvious reasons, since this was over missile silos, we were very concerned. Let's continue with the meeting. I do think this is a smart move by Anthony Blinken, and when it comes to that, and I assume that and this isn't like a revolutionary move by Blinken. He's really standing up to China. I assume most presidential administrations would probably have this response because it's the correct response and the obvious response. I don't want to seem like I'm just dragging Trump. Okay, can I drag Trump for a moment, chat? Chat, am I allowed to drag Trump for a moment? Just like a moment, just drag him a bit, right? Just a tiny, tiny bit. Okay, I'm going to drag him a bit. Gutter chat gave me the answer. Site chat didn't. Okay, nope, they gave me an answer and they said no. They said I'm not allowed to drag Trump. Well, I'm going to ignore site chat for the first and only time. Thank you, dialectical idealism. I do think... there he is, Dead Maniac, and Bammy helped me out. Okay, so I do think there's a slight possibility considering that Trump, when told by Xi Jinping, and this has been revealed by the Daily Beast and other reporting outlets from multiple sources from within the White House, that when Xi Jinping would call him and be like, hey, you sent a person over to Taiwan to talk to them about something, that makes me very sad, very, very sad, Mr. Trump. I thought you were a cool guy. Trump would be like, I'm a cool guy. Then he'd run over to his staff and be like, stop sending all these people to Taiwan. And if it was that easy for Xi Jinping to almost basically manipulate him when it came to Taiwan, and Trump has shown so little interest in Taiwan, that makes me think, well, maybe he would be easily manipulated on this as well. Now, there is a difference between Taiwan and the United States when it comes to a president's duty to serve its own people, and national security is a lot more obvious in a case where the Chinese are spying directly on the American people. But we also need to keep in mind that when the FBI was telling Trump, look, the Russians tried to get you elected. They were spreading misinformation. They hacked into these places right here and released information of Hillary Clinton in order to get you elected. They wanted that info out so you would win, and they spread misinformation so you would win. We don't know how effective it was in impacting the election, but we do know that was their intent, that they were engaged through the Internet Research Agency in an intelligence operation to spread misinfo, and they hacked the DNC to spread misinformation, right? He takes that information. He's like, wow, damn, the FBI, they invested all this stuff. Well, I went and I had a private meeting with Vladimir Putin, and he said, no, didn't do it. So afterwards, I told the press that, hey, I trust Putin. I have no reason to believe he's lying. Over the FBI. Now, you don't need to love the FBI. The FBI has a lot of problems, but the FBI was right. They weren't lying. They had access to the information. They had the proof. It was already available then during his administration, and we've only had more proof come out since. People talk about, oh, Russiagate was a hoax. The idea that Russia is like puppeting Vladimir Putin through P-tapes, stuff like that, that was a hoax. That, what I just said about them spreading misinformation to try to get a hold on Donald Trump, not to get a hold on Donald Trump, but a hold on his chances of winning, and them hacking the DNC, that's not rumor. That's fact. We know that happened. That's undeniable fact now. And so if Donald Trump was willing to trust Vladimir Putin's intelligence, and when I say his intelligence, I mean Putin just telling him something, over the FBI when they had the proof and they could actively show it to Donald Trump, what does that say about his ability to be manipulated? And we know that he was easily manipulated by the Chinese government on Taiwan when it came to representatives we were sending over. So if we know he has the ability to be manipulated by Xi on Taiwan, and he has the ability to be manipulated by foreign leaders like Putin on their intelligence operations in the United States and their misinformation operations, whatever they're doing, asymmetrical warfare, call it whatever you want. It was talked about in the Foundations of Geopolitics, Alexander Dugin's book. It's taught in Russian military academies, of trying to raise the amount of discontent in America to maybe start a race war or civil war, or by causing inner chaos in America. That's the best way to bring America down. He's going to trust Putin over American intelligence agencies. Why wouldn't he trust Xi Jinping over American intelligence agencies? I'm not saying that would happen for sure. Definitely, since this would be less involving himself directly, and therefore maybe he could remove his ego a little bit. But that does leave me concerned. And so I do think all the people on Twitter right now trying to say that Donald Trump would have shot this balloon down, saved everybody, it wouldn't have happened in the first place. Well, number one, there's a concern about civilian casualties, and I think people don't seem to be taking mind of that. And two, I do not think it is a safe bet that the Chinese wouldn't have done this if Donald Trump was in office. And I don't think there's a safe bet that Trump would even trust American intelligence about this balloon over just Xi saying it's a weather balloon. I think there's a decent chance, like, after having a call with Xi, he'd do a press conference to be like, I mean, the Chinese told me it's a weather balloon. That makes sense. It makes sense that there was a weather balloon flying over American missile silos. Yeah, that makes sense. Anyway, That's enough on this story. This isn't very surprising. This, of course, is concerning. Anybody who is American should obviously be concerned if foreign nations are using technology to spy on the United States. Not that surprising, though. And I think we should approach this issue with caution and make sure that everybody gets out of this with no casualties, no one dead, nobody hurt, and be patient. Awesome. Anyway, that's enough on that segment. What do you guys think?